2017 Louis Avenue, 2017 Louis Avenue.
Say who pops on.
Fire alarm, still, hallway smoke detector.
Yeah, let me know in the chats and stuff like that.
Fire, fire, response,
Who's saying what?
2017 Louis Avenue.
So your phone's on you?
Yeah, YouTube's live, yeah.
Hey, at least it works.
Fire
Yeah.
alarm at the still level, hallway smoke detector, no answer on scene, 1856.
You gonna try to do the truck meeting tomorrow?
Zoom.
Yeah.
Four.
All right, Jacob Winterbauer's on.
Show me tonight. Made contact with the homeowner, stated with her young daughter, yelling outside because they were cleaning up the
I wish whenever you pull up the video, you could see the chats afterwards, you know?
What do you mean?
Like you can't see, like if you pull up last week's video,
Mm-hmm.
you can't see the chats, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Should be able to. The chats happen as the video goes.
Oh,
So like if I type to chat at 5 minutes, you can't
Okay.
see that chat
No,
until
5
5
minutes.
minutes. I might be able to edit something into here.
okay.
Or if you just go to the very end of the video, it shows all of it.
Yeah, okay. Trevor said he couldn't do it live because he has to attend the village board meeting. He's coming back to watch the link.
What?
Is it showing up?
Yeah, right here.
Oh.
It's all from last week. So
That's cool. Let's go back and read that.
if you're on your phone, you just click live chat right here.
I'll show all of them. Jacob in there.
Well, there's 6 people watching. Jacob's the only one typing.
So there's 6 in there now.
Mm-hmm. Eight now.
There one in Russell.
go to these other two guys. We good to start, Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
How many do we got?
8 so far.
8? All right. Pull my notes here. So in front of me on my sides, I got all of our gas detectors, and as you can see, there's quite a few of them, which makes it somewhat complicated, unfortunately. And the majority of this, pretty much this whole pile over here is on 2711. So whenever you say grab the gas detector, I understand that could be a little nerve wracking or a little confusing to somebody on which one does what. So I made some notes here today on which ones do what things and kind of explain that for you. And please send comments here and we'll read off the comments and I'll try to answer those as they come in here. So the first thing I want to go over is the combustible gas
Fire
detector.
department, Monday night test page. This is the Monday night test page only. Time now is 19:02.
The combustible gas detector is one of the newer instruments that we have. To turn that on, we're just going to hit the power button over here, the A, and hold that, and it's going to come on.
Time now is 19:02.
In a second, I'll tell you, it'll come on here as soon as it's self-check. So what does this do? This looks for anything that's combustible. These work either they're thinking that they're always smelling methane or pentane. So whenever you come up to something like, let's say, gasoline or LP, it doesn't know that that's LP. It thinks it's either methane or pentane. So we're not getting 100% true reading, but you're getting pretty close to it, or a good idea of what it is. And it gives us two different things. It's still warming up here for us, but it's going to give us a percent, and it's also going to give us the parts per million. So and we got a little volume control thing here. So the LEL percent is on the top. And Hunter, if you want to put that LEL chart up there, so they can kind of see that, I'll put it up there and I'll take it back down. That's what LEL is. So if we don't have enough of a product, it's not going to ignite, right? If we have enough of a product, it will ignite. And if we have too much of a product, it won't ignite. That's in the upper flammable limit. So this is going to do a really good job of telling us that percent of how close we are to that ignitable stage, let's say, right? So it's going to start going off at like 10%, right? 10% of the LEL is going to go off. So when that goes off, does that mean we need to bail out the windows? No, it doesn't. But it means that there's something going on there. And that gives us a nice range because, once again, this thing doesn't know it's sniffing natural gas or whatever. So it gives us a nice buffer zone in there. So we don't have to bail out right away. Now, the other number that we have down here is the parts per million. So it's measuring the same thing. It's just giving you two different ways to read that. So the parts per million, you're going to see those numbers climb a lot faster, obviously, than the percent is as you get closer to something. And the other tool that we have on here is the dial. So you want to kind of creep that up to where it's just barely kind of clicking like that. And let's say that this box here was a furnace, right? We're going to kind of travel along the pipes, and as we get closer to something, I'm moving my finger up here, but it's going to start sounding like that, right? And then we know we have a gas leak in it. Now, if we stick this like right inside the furnace, you're going to have a little bit of gas. Be aware of that. But on the pipes and things like that, you really shouldn't have anything like that. Super sensitive. This is the same thing that Ameren's using. So, just because you pick up something doesn't mean we're going to have an explosion. but we shouldn't have anything like that. So if you find anything with this, you definitely want to shut the gas off and have that fixed and call Ameren for that. So my main goal tonight was, if we have a smell of gas, which instrument do we grab? And that would be this instrument right here. And that's the combustible gas detector on 2711. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut that off by just hitting the power button. All right, that's turned off. The other thing with all these gas monitors, if you do, let's say we pick up a heavy concentration of something, right? You want to make sure that that goes back to zero before you shut it off. You don't want to store any of that gas, because these instruments have pumps in them, so they pump that product in there. We don't want to store that in there because it'll ruin the sensors on those. All right, next one that we're going to use is this is a 5 gas, which is pretty close to our 4 gas on 12, but as the name says, we have one extra item on there. So I didn't turn this on because I didn't want to hear the background noise and all that. But to turn it on, we just hold this. It's going to do a pump test, put our finger over it, let it do its thing. Once it says pump test passed, pull your finger off, it'll do a little calibration, and it'll walk you right through that, and we're good to go. So what does this measure? This one measured, smell of gas, see if we get anything combustible. This one does do that to a certain percent. If you remember on the other one, you had that LEL reading, right? The percent of your LEL. Well, this does the same thing. But with that one, we can pick it up a lot sooner, right? And we can really narrow down the leak is right here, So this one only it doesn't do parts per million for LEL. It just does the percentage. So not quite as good, but still a great tool for that. All right. The next one that it does is oxygen. The oxygen sensor, in my opinion, is the most important sensor on any of these instruments here. Not because we need oxygen to breathe, which is true, but if we looked at our atmosphere as a container, we can dice that container up into percentages, right? We can draw little lines on it or whatever, and we know that our oxygen is always somewhere around 20%, right? Between 20 and 21% is where our oxygen should be. And that's what this is going to show you. So it's very rare that we have an oxygen-enriched atmosphere. If we did, you got a big problem there, but we're probably going to know what we have or what the cause of that is, and we can fix it really quick. So it's going to be an open oxygen tank, something like that. That doesn't happen naturally in our environment. But oxygen deficient atmosphere, that does happen quite a bit. And Hunter, if you can put up the next scale right there, same page, bottom of it there, yeah. So what Hunter's got in front of them, we can see every 0.1% of our oxygen that we drop down, that means that something else is in there. It is in our atmosphere at that time. So it's a really good gauge without having a bunch of really fancy instruments. We can see that, outside I'm at 20.9, right? Well, if I walk inside and I'm at 20.5, I know something else is in that environment. I don't know necessarily what it is, but I know something else is in there. And if we do a little investigating, we can figure out what it is. So that chart that Hunter told you or showed you there is 0.1% of your oxygen there is roughly equivalent to 1,000 parts per million of something. Okay, so we'll talk about parts per million here in a little bit more. But just remember, you can have 1,000 parts per million of something in there at 0.1%. So it's a really good, kind of catch-all to just always look at whenever you're looking at these detectors. The downside of that is when we look at our NIOSH guy and we start looking at what the ideal H atmosphere or different things are, 0.1% are 1,000 parts per million. That's a lot, that and a lot of things that's way over our ideal H atmosphere. But good thing to keep in the back of your mind, coming off an engine, trying to figure out what's going on, watch that oxygen reading. Is there any questions on that so far, Hunter?
No.
Okay, let's go to the next one there, H2S. So that is our sewer gas, right? And then Hunter on there, I think, that is the correct one. I guess it is there. there's a little diagram that I pulled up on what it says the PEL, permissible exposure limit, or the STEL, or the IDLH. IDLH stands for immediately dangerous to life or health. So you got 10%, 15%, and then 100% on that. And you can find that in your NIOSH guide or just Google search it if you need to. But your H2S is picking up basically sewer gas. So, you know, we was looking down at a manhole, something like that, and you got a confined space thing in that type of an environment, you would likely see that, you know, and that is definitely a problem. Kind of going back to what those other abbreviations is there, the PEL, that is how much a worker can handle in a 8-hour day, 40 hours a week. So you can handle it for 8 hours, you go home, kind of get rid of that. Your body would naturally get rid of it, and then you go back and get more, and you know, back and forth like that. The STEL, that's kind of the same thing, but it's how much you can get in, I believe it's 15 minutes. And then there's a certain amount of time in between those. If Andy was here, Andy, you can probably tell us more about that because you dealt with a lot of that, I know, at Granite City Steel. But that's what our H2S is. Next one we got on there is CO. So CO, that's a byproduct, right, of any kind of burning fossil fuels. And we went on a CO call last night, and out of all the calls that we run, if it's not a smell of gas, it's probably a CO alarm, right? And we have two different ways to measure that. We have this one, you know, so it's great to give one guy this one, and he stays upstairs, and maybe somebody takes one of these and goes downstairs. We have these on 11, every truck, 11, 12, 17, and 19. They all have one of these single gas CO detectors. Not a lot really in my notes here to show you. I did make a chart for Hunter to show you guys there on how much CO we can have in an occupant before it's an issue. So if you have any in there, you know, if you walk in there and saw 10 parts per million, something's going on. You know, we need to do a little investigating work and see what's going on there. But you can see that you can, you know, once again, 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, 25 is what they say there. And on that list that Hunter gave you, which I also have on the trucks, immediately dangerous to life or health is 1,200 per CO. So not something to mess around with, but just because you might have 30 on a reading there doesn't mean we need to bail out the windows necessarily. We got a problem, but not a gigantic problem, and not something that somebody needs to be living in or going back in either. So hopefully you don't have any questions on that. Next one I got is the PID. So that's what everything we talked about so far we can do with our Draeger 4 gas, and we could do with, I know New Athens has one identical to this. Smithland has a different brand, but basically the same thing, right? But the PID is what makes this one somewhat special, okay? And what is that? So it's measuring VOCs. So if we go to buy paint like Ace Hardware, spray paint, or any kind of oil-based paint, you know, you'll hear, or maybe if you go buy latex paint, you know, they're bragging on what low VOCs it has, so how much it's off-gassing, right? And that's what this thing can measure. Now, unfortunately, it can't measure every VOC. And once again, you know, kind of like when we talked about, this thing is still, it's only thinking it's either methane or pentane. It doesn't know that we're in ammonia, for instance, or whatever else that is, you know, some kind of, you know, any kind of oil-based product, you know, that's fuming off. It doesn't know what it is. So is the number 100% correct? Absolutely not. But for us, we can look at that and say, something's going on here. I do have the presence of something. You know, that's our main objective right off the bat. So how do we know that this thing will pick up the product that we're looking at? And Hunter, if you pull up the NIOSH guide right there, where I got that post-it note, I have ammonia. So that is honestly the reason why we got this detector, is for anhydrous ammonia. And if we look at ammonia there's a reading there that says IP, kind of down about halfway to the left there. You can see its solubility, its flammable stuff, you know, and then we see IP and it says 10.18, right? I really don't know what IP stands for, but I do know that if you look in the front, and Hunter, if you go to the inside of the front cover of that, there's a cheat sheet in every one of our NIOSH guides. And on that cheat sheet is kind of the list to go through as you go through your NIOSH guide. You know, does it have this? That means that it's solid, or if it's this, it means it's liquid, and so on. There, 3/4 of the way down there, it says that if our IP is greater than, or I'm sorry, yeah, I think I said that right, then 10.6, then we can use it, or I'm sorry, if it's less than 10.6, we can use it for this detector right here. And we said that we have 10.18. So that is, you know, less than 10.6. What?
Bossy has a question.
Okay.
Do you need to turn on any of the monitors and clean air before entering the structure?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Nathan. All of them you do. So whenever we go on a CO call, we want to do that as soon as we get in the cab of the truck, you know. Last night, you know, as soon as I got on there, as soon as I got my headset turned on, that's the first thing I went to, because it takes, you know, a minute or two to get that thing going. And we're gonna look like a bunch of buffoons standing outside saying, just wait a minute, you know. But the worst thing you can do is start it up next to the exhaust pipe. But yeah, start those up. But going back to that IP, as long as it's less than that, and I can't remember that stuff, that's why I put a cheat sheet in every one of the front of those, then we can use this instrument, the PID on this, to find that. And then we can go back and find some calibration factors to really dial it in. And if we really dial it in, we'll be able to say, well, we know we have so many parts per million of ammonia. And we can look in our book there and say, whatever that number was there, IDLH atmosphere for ammonia is only 300 parts per million, incredibly low. To where if you just had a forecast and you was looking at those 0.1% of your oxygen, you can see that we're not going to pick it up in time. You know, you're way over that limit. So ammonia is a really dangerous product to work around there. So if you got more questions on that, please type those in. All right. Moving on to the next detector. That was pretty much all in this one. I have our ultra rad detectors that we got right here. We have two of these. This one is in the box that it came in, and it stays on 11. And I got another one on the driver's side, high side compartment of 2712. Okay, and these are floating around kind of all throughout the Mavis division. I would say all throughout the state, because the Mavis divisions, or the Mavis organization, passed them out to us. So what does this thing do? It does, it picks up radiation, and to be more specific, it picks up gamma radiation. And in those, and Hunter, I think you have a copy of this. Maybe, yep. Open up that colored sheet right there. I have a cheat sheet with every one of these that looks like this. Okay, and first we got to know a little bit about radiation, very little bit. So we got alpha, beta, gamma, and then neutron, right? So the least, I guess I'd say dangerous, or the easiest one to stop would be your alpha. And just a piece of paper is going to stop that. So by looking at this detector, I can see it's got no way to get inside and pick it up. So is this going to pick up alpha? No, it's not. And then beta, a thin piece of aluminum plating is going to stop it. Well, this thing's like made out of coated steel. Is it going to get in there? No, it's not. But the gamma, it's going to take a lead plate to stop that. Will it pick it up? Yes, it will. To back up a little bit to get this going, you have to put the batteries in there. We cannot leave the batteries in there because within 6 months' time, they'll corrode the whole thing. Just the makeup of this particular product will eat batteries like crazy. So all we do is put the batteries in there. It shows us right on the side the direction that they go, and then hit on. Okay. Now, right now, it's saying I got 12 URs. Does that mean that I'm radioactive? No, that's just the background of where we're at. You can go to different places in the country and it's going to be higher or lower than what we got right there. But that's where we're at right now. So for an engine company, this is, you got some kind of unknown. You know, we don't know what's going on, or if they're monitoring for something. you get off the truck and this thing starts alarming, that's a backup moment. You know, this isn't gonna tell you exactly where it's at necessarily. It's just an alarm that's gonna start going off that we can back up and say, we got something and we need to kind of research what's going on before we go any farther with that. That's what I would say. The other thing that this thing can do is it's a dosometer. So if you hang this, if you're in an area like that and you hang this on you, it will calculate how much absorbs into your body, or how much you're exposed to, I should say, in so many hours. Go ahead, Hunter.
Nathan wants to know when we would ever use this.
What I would say, if you have something unknown, if I got a tractor trailer rolled over, you know, that we're responding to, and we don't know what it is, even just any unknown trailer, whether it's got the radioactive placard or not on it, I would definitely pull this out.
Train derailment?
Yeah, well, the train, you probably know what it is, but if it's one of those box trains that carries everything from Walmart, you have no idea what's in there, I've only used this one time, and it was a barrel that was left behind Gary's that no one knew what it was, and we went and checked it out, and it was nothing. It was Ameren doing some soil testing, but they didn't tell anyone, so we got this out to see what it is, and we could mark off the radiation part. So is it something you're gonna use all the time? No. Hopefully I don't think we're really gonna have a weapons of mass destruction event going on, but if you did, this would be something you pull out, or just unknown people sick in their house and you have no idea why they're getting sick. That's where I would go and grab this. We got 2 of them, and we got them for free. So that's the other reason we got those. You do have a cheat sheet that I printed off here on how much your body can take. And then you also have the one that came with it that talks a little bit more about that, gives you a little directions on how to turn that on, but basically turn it on. If it alarms, back up. Okay. The next thing we got, now this box is going to be in 2712 and then also in the back of the pumper. So we made this little kit up. So not all of our instruments are $1,000 instruments, Some of them are $5 things, the pH strips, that tell us just as much as any of these do. So in this, we have MA paper, another one of these things, Nathan, that I bet we'll never use. But if you have people with, their eyes are all teared up and they're all feeling sick, I would pull this out and see what's going on. There was a high school south of us that some kid sprayed pepper spray in the return air duct and spread that out throughout the high school, and they had no idea what was going on. Was it an IDLH atmosphere? No, not really, but with something like this, that is what this picks up. It picks up nerve agents. So pepper spray, stuff like that is what it's going to do. So you open that up, pull a piece off, put a little bit of neutral water on there and set it down. And if it starts changing colors, it's got a little graph just like pH paper. Something we're going to use? Probably not, but we got it. Just in case that, something weird is going on. pH paper, very useful tool going into the unknown atmosphere, but also known. So if we're going to any kind of corrosive thing, one, we don't really want to take our instruments into anything corrosive, right? Two, we don't have the PPE to do that. That's a level A suit immediately. So if things are getting corrosive, we can go up to that point where they start showing up corrosive, and then we're backing up. That's just not our game, right? But if we see somebody laying on the ground, we're going to want to try to get as close as we can safely. So that's where your pH paper comes in. So you can tape that to your face piece, to your glove, to your boot. Most guys will take this and tape it to a pipe hole and hold it out in front of them, dampen that a little bit, and you'll get a little better reaction on that. But as soon as that changes colors, that's a backup moment. Definitely a backup moment. So they'll pick up strong acids or bases, right? And it'll change rapidly on each one. Could also be a good tool, if I have that box truck turned over with something leaking out of it, it could have 100 different products in there that we don't know what are. But we can see if that product is an acid or base and try to figure out what is leaking before we open the door on that, right? So good tool like that, pretty inexpensive. The last one I got in these boxes, and both boxes are the same, is your F paper. So the F paper, that picks up flooring, F for flooring. So we have two places, one in our district and the other one in our county, that deals with this stuff a lot. And it is a product that is looking for the calcium in your bones. So it gets on you and it's gonna seep that out and will kill you pretty fast, is what they claim. So the one place that they use it in a liquid form at standard laboratories out there in the old Peabody office. They use that for their soil testing. Don't have a lot of it, but it only takes a drop of it to kill you, you know. They do keep that locked up pretty good, and they're very careful with it. They have a lot of PPE when they're using that, but it is something that is dealt with out there. So that's one reason we got it. The other place that we have it is solvate fluoride. So obviously that's in their name there. That's a place down in Allerton, but the trucks are running right up and down the highway with that stuff in there too. So that would not be uncommon for us to get that. Super bad product. We want to make sure that we're nowhere around that, and that works just like the pH papers. If that changes colors, that's definitely a backup moment. You know. And splash protection suits, you know, your level B suits. But if you got a big leak on that, you don't want to go anywhere near that. If somebody out there at Standard Labs has that, you know, they have a salve that they put on them out there that they're gonna be rubbing in probably before we get out there, and then on our decon we can use this paper to see if it's neutralized itself. Definitely be in a splash suit though, a level B suit. Okay. The box that I have here, this goes with this. Okay. So this is, we can take this, put this on here, and then with our hose, we can drop this down into something like a sewer or a grain bin or something like that and see what's going on in the bin without getting down in there. Make sure that you remember though, that does have a pump on it, but I'm not gonna say it's a super fast pump. So for every foot of hose, you gotta give it at least a second. I give it 2 seconds. You only have like 5 feet of hose there. So give it a good 20 seconds before you move on to see if your meter is reacting. So that's in the black box that sits in the doghouse of the truck. And then our CO detectors, we know what that is because we kind of already went over CO. All right, so that's everything we got on 11. Any questions on 11 there, Hunter? Nothing? All right, let's move on to, the easy one to move on to would be 17 and 19. The only thing that those two trucks have is that. So we talked about that. 12. So on 12, we have our box of paper, right? And then we also have our Draeger 4-gas. Draeger 4-gas, pretty easy. It's got 2 buttons, really hard to screw up. The one that's green is on. I'm gonna push that and hold that till it comes on. It's gonna do its little air check. To turn it off, you hold the 2 buttons together. That's the way you turn it off. So 2 buttons, pretty easy to handle there. The batteries don't like to last real long in there. So we can get the batteries out. In this box, there's a little magnet down there that holds an Allen wrench. And if I screw this off down here, pull that out, you can put new batteries in there. So I like to use Energizer's lithium batteries because they won't explode. This is $800 right here. I'd spend the extra money to put the batteries in there that don't explode on us, you know. So always put lithiums in there. The other thing that we got with this is if we got this is older than this, but if we have to take a reading down into like a sewer, something like that, which we was doing whenever we had, you know, the smell of gas a couple of years ago in the sewers, we're going to use this tool right here. So you pull that off with your Allen wrench, put your batteries in there, take this, you got to have this closed and this down. I want to stick that in there, and I told you wrong. Putting it in the wrong way. Push down like that. When you do that, it's doing its air check. Put your finger over the hole. Good to go. And then we have plenty of hose here. Give it a second or two for every bit of hose that we got. It turned itself off there. Okay. The last instrument that I have for you is this particular one right here. So we have something like this on every SCBA. We have our thermal imaging camera, right, that gives us heat capabilities. We can look at something, whenever we're in a building and point at it and say, well, that's 100, or 200 degrees or whatever. But this will only start picking up stuff 500 degrees and hot, and it goes a lot farther. Like this thing is supposed to shoot at least a block and a half away. So if I had something like a rail car on fire, that's why Greg wanted us to buy this thing. So to turn that on, you gotta put the batteries in the trigger right here. You pull this down, batteries come out. And if you read the buttons there, they'll tell you what buttons do each one. But if you push the center button and the down button, that will send the two laser beams out. I'm shooting ahead of there, and it's just telling me low right now because, like I said, it only picks up stuff about 500 degrees or more. A good way to check this and kind of train yourself on this is go to the stove in the kitchen, turn the stove on, and start shooting this at the burner, and it'll start picking that up from across the room. So that's for your tank car to figure out, is it going to blow or not going to blow. I think the only other thing that I forgot to tell you guys, and I know it's a question on your quiz here, is which detector will Bluetooth into your air pack? And that would be this particular one right here. So this one is paired with the officer air pack on 2711. That's the only air pack that it's paired to, and the only one that we want it paired to. So if this is paired with that pack, and that officer is breathing air off of it, all of his information is going to go over the telemetry system, right? Well, along with that, there'll be a little chemical beaker that the incident command can point on or click on, and it'll pull up everything that is on this screen. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to remember it. You can even forget about that. But just know that 2711, those two are paired up together. It'll also do it on an Android device, but it works on Bluetooth and it doesn't go very far. So, the telemetry thing, you'll go a couple blocks. I think that's all I got on these monitors. So hopefully you kind of remember if we got smell of gas, the main thing I wanted to get across was use this. If we have a CO detector going off, use these two. If you can remember those two things, I feel pretty happy with that. The only other thing I wanted to pass on tonight was Trevor came in here at the end of the day and told us that they have a hole in the water tower by the park, and they've had to drain that. So it didn't adjust our gauge out here where the mop bucket is yet. If you guys remember, a couple of years ago, they did the water tower over here by Don Bacher's. But they drained that, and they got a repair guy coming out to see if they can weld that up. But we're going to be out without that for a while. So if we get a large fire, we're definitely going to want to contact the village to kick their pumps or whatever on there immediately, or let them know that we got something going. That's all I got. You got anything, Shmitty, for them? I think we're good. Truck meeting tomorrow night on Zoom. If you need help with that, let me know. Any questions, Hunter?
Nope.
I'll be sending your guys' active 911 out with your quiz if you can fill that out. Thank you.